We all hate it when we try to speak Portuguese and someone speaks English back to us. Well, if this happens to you a lot, it's because your accent is giving you away. Now, I've already done a video on how to lose your American accent, but today I'm helping out my fellow countrymen and women and giving tips to lose your English accent when speaking Portuguese. As I told you in a previous video, perfect pronunciation is one of the best ways to fake good Portuguese, and if you are a beginner, then you have to start here because it is the best way not only to be understood but to start to understand when you are listening as well. But what if your English accent is creeping in? How can we fix it so that you sound more like a local? Let's get into the tips. If you need this lesson today, give me a like and hit subscribe if you are new here. I'm Liz, I'm a Brit who moved to Portugal over 7 years ago now, and I cover practical Portuguese in plain English every week, so stick around if that's what you're looking for. So as always, the biggest difference in most languages is the way we pronounce vowels. Now, English people don't have a problem with the open O because that's what we would use in words like opposite. That's the O we would use in hola, and it's the first O in obrigado. However, my English students will usually mispronounce the final O in that word. In Portuguese, if a word ends in O, it should be a closed O, which sounds like this, U. So instead of saying obrigado, which will give you away as an English speaker, you need to say obrigado. It will make a huge difference. The next letter my English students usually struggle with is S. So let's take a sentence and say in very English Portuguese, Tenho muitos amigos. Already we have learned that we need to close down those O's. Muitos amigos. But can you see what I did with the S there? When a word ends in an S, it needs to be pronounced like a sh. I go into this in detail where I go through the various sounds that S can make in Portuguese because there are several. I go into detail in my free lesson for beginners. So if you haven't signed up yet, you really should. It is the best place to get started with grammar, pronunciation, and listening skills. I will leave the link in the description. The next letter, which is very tricky for English speakers, is the letter R. Now, if we take a word like perfect in English, we can see that that R almost feels like it's silent, okay? So when we say a word like falar, you can hear that there is a R sound at the end there. That's what we call the tapped R, okay? The tongue is making a tap on the roof of our mouth. But English people tend to want to forget that that R is there and say falar and leave it completely hanging. So we want to fix that. If we don't want people to notice we are English, we need to perfect that tapped R and say falar. Next up is the TU sound. Now, if you've seen this video where I talk about using the way the Portuguese mispronounce words in English to improve your Portuguese pronunciation, it sounds confusing, but I promise it's a great strategy to help you, so go and check out that video next. You will have seen me explain that in English, a TU often has a ch sound, like in the word Portugal. That's why my English students will say Portugal, okay, and Portuguese, but that's not what we want here. We don't want that ch sound. Instead, we need to remember that a U should sound like an U, and so instead, this is going to sound like a tu. So we need to say Portugal, Português. It's the same with words like temperature. Just because the word temperatura looks very, very similar, my English students want to put that ch in there and say temperatura, but it's not there, okay? Really look out for this. It should be a tu, temperatura. A U by itself can also be confusing as well. We would go for a y sound in English. For example, the word music. But again, in Portuguese, we have to stick to a straightforward U sound as if it was two O's. So a word like this needs to be música and not musica. Finally, I really want you to look out for words that look similar in English because this is where your English accent is going to creep in. It won't sound the same in Portuguese. Take a word like especial. If I know my pronunciation rules for S and C in Portuguese, again, if you need help with that, go and sign up for my free lesson for beginners or download my free pronunciation guide. Both are linked in the description. I know that this should be a sh and then a s. But because in English the word is special, a s and then a sh, 9 times out of 10, my English students will put these sounds the wrong way round and say especial. So this really is an important tip. Just because a word looks similar, it may not sound similar when spoken. So you've got to get a good understanding of those pronunciation rules. The first module of my course for beginners is devoted to pronunciation and is a real game changer. So if you want to find out more about joining us inside the Portuguese Pro program, I will leave a link to some student interviews below where they share their story of getting conversational in Portuguese with me. All the information on how to apply is at the end of my free lesson for beginners, so I hope to see you there. I'll be back at the same time next week with more tips and tutorials to build your confidence and conversation skills in Portuguese, so I hope to see you there. Ciao for now.